Okay, so I played in an over-the-board tournament here in Nebraska as a little warm-up for the bigger tournament I'm playing in Charlotte in a few weeks. This was a pretty fast time control. It was 15 minutes with a 5-second delay, so that would be online, that would be called rapid. Over the board, that's called quick, but fairly fast time control. It was 4 rounds. I played against opponents ranging from about 1300 to 1900 USCF. So, I mean, that's a fairly wide range, but it captures a lot of the people who read my newsletter. So I thought it could be interesting to look at these games, see what happens, see, what were the key moments in these games, what types of mistakes were deciding the games, and how was I navigating it against players in this range. So round 1, I had black against Alan, who was rated around 1300. He went d4. I went for the Slav. He played g3, which is a little unusual. G3 setups are a little rarer against the Slav, and most people, if they were going to go for this, would play knight f3 first, but I don't think it's really a big deal. I decided to take. I was kind of thinking maybe if bishop g2, e5 is a good move. And then if he takes, I can take away castling rights, and maybe, this king on d1 could be a problem. But at any rate, he just played knight f3, so we're back to a more normal position. I played knight f6, and then knight e5. So already moving the same piece twice in the opening. This knight's attacking the pawn on d4. But what's odd is white's not even actually threatening to take on d4, because if he did that, I would have queen d5 with a double attack. So I decided to play c5 because I felt like by moving the knight, my opponent had kind of weakened d4. But this pawn on c6 is restricting potentially a bishop that comes here, this knight, or a queen that could come out here. So in hindsight, I don't love this decision. Interestingly, one of the computer's top moves is a move I didn't even consider, knight g4. Again, if takes, queen d5, this is bad for white. So the computer thinks white's best move is actually to go back, and we could even have like a weird repetition here. Obviously, I'm not looking to force a draw in this game, but any time the computer's top move is something I didn't even consider, I like to sort of take note of that, because maybe an idea like that could help me in a different game. Anyway, I play c5. My opponent played queen a4 check. I block and takes. So right away I noticed my opponent's playing very aggressively in the opening, before even getting many pieces out, moving the same piece twice, developing the queen early, so breaking a lot of the opening rules. And of course, I'm sure my opponent knows, like, don't move the same piece twice, don't bring your queen out too early. Obviously, he's aware of that, but he's trying to attack me very quickly with only a few pieces. So that's generally something I'm happy to see, because I feel like if I just develop and react well, it shouldn't, he shouldn't be able to beat me with just 2 pieces. So I just played e6, developing and trying to take this pawn. And here he thought for a while, and one line I was considering was c6. So actually, I thought I could pause at a few moments in this video to give you a chance to see how you would play. So if you want, you can pause, consider how you would react to c6, and if you think that's a good move. Okay, so here's the line I was calculating. I thought knight takes e5, c takes b7, check, bishop d7, c takes a8, queen takes, and now I'm down. Let's see, what is the material? I'm down in exchange at the moment, but I'm attacking the queen and the rook. But white can play queen a5, attacking this knight. So I saw this. I saw that I could take this rook, takes, and actually the material would be back to completely even now with a weird position that's kind of hard to evaluate. But I was also wondering, do I have a win here? And the computer says there's only one move that wins cleanly, And it's actually queen e4, defending the knight and threatening some checks because the e-pawn is pinned. And if something like knight c3, there's knight d3 check, king, and queen moves. And if white takes this knight, I'm getting this bishop back. So I'm going to emerge up a piece from this. So I thought that was a cool line, just especially this move queen e4, showing the power of centralization. But while I was thinking about this, my opponent just went ahead and played bishop g2. So this ended up not being relevant in the end. So I just took the pawn, got my bishop out, getting ready to castle. Knight takes. And this was a move I was really happy to see, because if there's one problem with my position right now, it's that these queenside pieces are kind of jammed up. And I'm going to have to figure something out to get those pieces out. Now, of course, once I castle, this knight will be threatened, and white's going to have to deal with that. So it's not an easy position for white, but this move, I think, makes my life a bit too easy, because now all my pieces are just flowing into the game. Queen takes c4. So here's another moment you could think how you would react. White is attacking two things, this bishop and this pawn. So you can pause and see how you would react to that. So the move I played, I think it's a very natural move. It's just rook c8, defending the bishop and also lining up with everything on the c-file and creating a threat of bishop takes f2 check. So white definitely has no time to take on b7. Queen b6 also possible. This is also not a bad move, but I feel like rook c8 is just, you know, in poker there's some decisions we call like fist pumps. Like, yeah, like, you know, you're just really happy to make a certain play. And for me, rook c8 is definitely a fist pump move. Getting my rook into the game, lining up with the queen, lining up with the bishop. So, you know, if you didn't sort of sense the power of this move, or you were really worried about the pawn on b7, you might want to work a little bit on development or sort of sensing the initiative, because this is definitely a very good situation for black. My opponent played queen d3 to get out of that discovered attack, but here I actually already missed a tactic that would have won the game. So I think this is the last spot where we'll, maybe second to last spot where we'll pause here. Can you see a way for black to win the game? And the move I missed, well, I considered this move, but I didn't quite work out that it worked, is I can actually go ahead and take here, check, takes, this bishop is defended, but after knight g4, white's king doesn't have a good square. If the king steps up, that's a fork, but if it goes anywhere back, that will interfere with the rook, and I will take that bishop. So I guess white would just have to move the king somewhere else, but I mean, if I can take that pawn with check and white can't even take my bishop, that's obviously great. And I did actually, you know, whenever you miss something, you want to focus on not just the move, but also what was your thought process? Why did you miss it? And I did consider bishop f2, and if I'm trying to reconstruct my thoughts during the game, I think I thought knight g4, his king can move a lot of places, I don't want to sacrifice a piece, and I kind of abandoned it. But the truth is, to figure this out from this position, I mean, there's not really a lot you have to go through. King f3 runs into a fork, and king back anywhere drops the bishop. So pretty simple tactic, definitely a sign that my tactical alertness is not quite where I want it to be. Fortunately, I had a very good position anyway. I played queen b6, and after castles, I was able to do the same tactic, essentially. Check. It's all pretty simple from here. Knight g4, taking advantage of this pin. Queen f3, takes, queen b2. And my opponent decided to resign at this point because I'm winning this rook. I'm just kind of cleaning up the rest of the pieces. So, okay, what decided this game? Well, I think it really did come back to my opponent breaking those opening principles of moving the same piece multiple times with that knight, which just ended up getting exchanged, and also moving the queen a lot early. And ultimately, you know, it's interesting because I got essentially a winning position from the opening, but I didn't really do anything aggressive. It was actually my opponent who was being kind of over-aggressive, and that rebounded on him. So I think, you know, if you're watching this video, you probably know those opening principles: get all the pieces out, control the center, castle. But in the heat of the moment, it's easy to sort of forget those or think there's some reason why you have to abandon them. But more often than not, following those principles and developing does tend to work out. So if you find yourself moving the same piece a lot in the opening, or if you notice you have a lot of games where you're getting into trouble or even losing the game before you get all your pieces out or before you castle, that's maybe a sign that you want to go back to those basic opening principles.